Okay, Beth, if you could take a deep breath for me and then release whenever you're ready. Perfect. We're going to start this evening by doing a really gentle cleanse using the Cicadia cleansing oil. And this should smell really beautiful, so I'm just going to lift that over the face and then start by massaging that in, working all the way from the neck up to the forehead, and working around the nose and across the cheeks. And I love using oil as a fast cleanse because it just allows us to lift all of the makeup and SPF from the skin without stripping any of those natural oils that we really want to preserve. I'm just taking that cleanse down and over the chest where I'll be massaging later. And we're just settling into the bed. And while we're settling, we're just going to take our attention to different areas of the body in a really gentle body scan. And the idea is that we're just placing our attention on each area and gently shutting down our thoughts at the same time. So we're going to start at the tip of our toes, and we're just sending our attention to our toenails and to the space in between our toes. And then going to bring our attention to our ankles. And just feeling into each area. Beautiful, and then bringing our attention to our shins and then up to our knees. From our knees, we're going to bring our attention to our thighs and then to our pelvis. And just noticing any tension that we might be holding in any of these bigger muscle groups. And just releasing as we bring our attention there. From our pelvis, we're going to move up and bring our attention to our stomach and to our belly button. So thinking about our kidneys resting at the back of our body and any tension we might be holding in our hips. I'm going to travel up and bring our attention to our lungs and our heart sitting in the center of our chest. To our sternum and our collarbones. And then going to send our attention all the way down our arms to our fingertips. Thinking about the palms of our hands and our wrists. Thinking about the space inside of our elbow and then up to our armpits. Bringing our awareness to the whole length of our spine. And thinking about our skull resting at the top of our neck. Thinking about the space behind our ears and our tongue resting in our mouth. Thinking about our lips and our teeth and how the air flows as you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Picturing each of your eyelashes and sending the attention to your third eye, which sits in between your brows. Now think about all the hairs on your head, all of those hair follicles. And then lastly, just bringing your attention to the very crown of your head. Beautiful. I'm going to remove that oil cleanse with a warm set of mitts. You can feel that warmth starting on your chest, coming out to the shoulders and down the arms, and then up the neck. And I'm going to turn them over and using a fresh side, removing all the oil from the face. I'm going to take my gel cleanser as a lovely second cleanse. And this is really nice because it foams up just slightly, so it gives us a bit of a deeper cleanse. And has a really beautiful texture. And just gently working this into the skin. And taking my time. And don't need to rush anything. But all the time that we need. Figure of eights around the eyes and then circling on the third eye. Alternating between both hands. And then really working into the jawline. Perfect. I'm going to remove that with my next set of mitts. And always with a lifting upward motion. It's really nice when you slow down and notice the little things. The sound of the bubbles are really nice. Hopefully my mics are fancy enough to pick that up. Perfect. And then I'm going to finish that section with a gentle rose mist. And gently pat that into the skin. It kind of replaces the toner that we might traditionally use and helps to lock in that hydration. Perfect. And then for our mask, we're doing a cream hydrating lotion. That's really just going to help to soothe and calm the skin, especially after sun exposure in summer. It can be really important to keep everything nice and gentle. Perfect. Perfect. And then taking my grapeseed oil, I'm starting from the center of the chest and working out the shoulders. And just gently spreading that oil and working down the arms and then back into the center of the chest. And lifting all the way to behind the ears and then coming back to work in center. Using the shoulders to gently rotate my hands inwards. And just finding circles. And a flow to work from one side to the other. Using quite a light pressure here. And then bringing in my fingertips and fanning from one side to the other, working out over the pectoral muscles. Slowly increasing the pressure by incorporating my knuckles and working down the deltoids. Doing peace fingers either side of the collarbone and then just gently pumping out towards the armpits. And coming back into center onto prayer and out to shoulders. And really opening out the chest here. And that will just help everything to flow when we go into the facial massage. Gently turning the head to the side and now creating space between the shoulder and the ear. And creating a really nice push and pull. And opening out the chest. And using my thumb to work deeper into the trapezius. And then pulling all the way back to the occipiter, sitting at the back of the skull. That forms that little shelf. Looking down and then back up. Pushing it out and then pulling all the way to behind the ear. I'm really trying to elongate each movement. Find as much space as I can. And creating a lovely counter stretch, so by holding at the occipiter and then pushing down gently on the shoulder. This is an area that can become really tight and constricted if we're always looking down or working at a desk. And then we're going to circle upwards behind the ear. And then when I reach the top of the ear, I'm going to drain down the front of the neck. And then repeat. Circling from the bottom of the ear to the top. And then draining down. And then using both hands, stretching from the shoulder up to the scalp. I like to call this 1,000 hands because you shouldn't be able to feel where one stops and the next one starts. It's like a conveyor belt, working all the way up into the scalp. I'm going to start by circling along the occipiter. Applying a gentle but firm pressure. And that consistent circular movement can travel up further into the hairline. And then work just behind the ear. And combing upwards, I'm going to take peace fingers either side of the ear and then a gentle pumping motion. So always working with rather than against our lymphatic system. And just looking to create movement and flow. And then using both hands. And looking to release. This is always my favourite part of getting my hair cut. And then combing through the hair. Also use our Gua Sha comb just to gently move up through the hair. Again, applying that gentle but firm pressure and just gently waving up towards myself. Working all the way through those beautiful curls. And then circling out the occipital. Perfect. I'm going to drain back down the neck. Using again that push and pull. And both my hands are going to come back into center and then lift and lower. And then gently turn over to the other side. And just applying a little bit more oil as I start on the second side. Again with that push and pull from the center of the chest out to the shoulder and up to behind the ear. And just opening out the chest, creating some nice stretches and releases as we lift up. And using my thumb to work deeper into the trapezius, looking for any areas of tension that I might want to hold or focus on. And circling with my fingers, lifting up towards myself. Almost in like a pinch and lift motion. And then stretching all the way to behind the ear. I'm going to hold the occipital and then use my other hand to push the shoulder away. And we're just looking to create that space, that opening. And allow everything to flow and drain. And then lifting up to behind the ear, I'm going to start by doing my little circles. All the way to the top of the ear and then draining down the front of the neck. And travelling back round the shoulder blade. And again, circling up towards myself. And then draining down. And taking one hand after the other and gently sweeping up to behind the ears. And then lastly, returning to that push and pull that we started with. I love that feeling of one move just gliding into the next. And then we're lifting up into the scalp and starting with those gentle circles around the occipital. And that moves really easy to allow it to travel further up into the scalp. Applying really gentle but firm pressure. And travelling further up into the scalp. And then taking peace fingers either side of the ear and gently pumping. Circling along the hairline. And then using both hands. And then I'm going to take my Gua Sha comb and just like I did before, starting at the occipital and just gently wiggling it up towards me. And keeping that pressure really nice and consistent. And just working into any areas that I feel like I missed. Perfect. And then I'm going to bring a gentle draining back and down the neck and out towards the armpits. Gently lifting and bringing us back into center. Now using both hands, I'm going to circle behind the ears. Exactly as I did before from the side. And then those same peace fingers gently pulsing. And then working up into the scalp and then applying pressure down the center part. I'm rocking in and out to control my pressure. So as I rock in, I apply, and as I rock out, I release. And this allows for really reassuring and gentle flow within the movement. And then each time I reach the base of the skull, come back to the top and then just move slightly further out towards the ears. My favourite way to end a scalp massage. And then ending really close to the ears. One last line of pressure points. And then placing both my hands on top of each other. And again, just rocking in and out. Applying really gentle pressure. Returning to the center of the chest, scooping all the way around, lovely big pull of the neck, and then just holding the head. And just letting it rest in my hands. I'm so fascinated by cranial sacral work. I have no idea how it works, but it seems to. And it really creates like beautiful releases and realignments. I've only had it a few times, and I've been to a school here in London where you get to be seen by students, and it's really interesting and definitely something I'd want to look into in the future. But there's always a million courses that I want to do and never enough time. But I think that's the real beauty of this industry, is you kind of never stop learning. There's always something to add to your practice. And that makes it really fun and rewarding. Perfect. And then I'm just going to remove our mask with a warm set of mitts. And just lifting up and applying just the natural pressure of my resting hands. And then just applying our grapeseed oil for the facial massage section. And lifting up towards myself. And keeping that flow nice and consistent. We'll start by working up the neck. And I'm going to do 5 repetitions, lifting from the collarbone to behind the ears. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then I'm going to come up and do that same movement, but just in front of the ears, working on the masseter. And again, I'm going to do 5 repetitions. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now working from the chin out towards the ears along the jawline. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Working underneath the chin, lifting up towards myself. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then coming up over the chin. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Working out along Risorius, which sits corner of the lips out towards the ears. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now I'm going to come into prayer on the chin and pulling all the way back, stretching to the hairline. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now opening the face, travelling down the bridge of the nose and scooping out towards the ears. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now circling around the eyes, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then reversing that circle, so coming up the bridge of the nose and out across the brows. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then back to my lifting motion, but this time up into the hairline. I'm going to work in and out across the forehead. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then 1,000 hands, just like I was doing, from the shoulder to behind the ear. So that conveyor belt. As soon as one finishes, the next starts. And go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And exactly the same motion, but now working outwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Circles on the temples. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then a gentle sweep all the way down to the chin, lifting all the way up. Again, from the collarbone all the way up to the forehead. And then lastly, across the chest and lifting up and gently turning the head to the side. Perfect. And now I'm going to move myself onto diagonal and again lifting up. And this time in front of the ear. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Working out along the jaw. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Gently draining down the front of the neck and then coming back onto the face. Working out along Rosorius, but now from the side. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Scooping up underneath the zygomatic arch. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm going to take my Gua Sha and gently wiggle down the neck. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And coming along the bottom of the jawline out towards the ear. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now lifting along the jawline with the double curve. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And working down the neck to drain. Now taking the flat edge, I'm going to do one big scoop all the way up to the hairline. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then finishing with that glide down the neck again. Now taking the corner of my tool, I'm going to scoop in underneath the cheekbone and hold for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and smoothing over 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Coming underneath the eye with 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that can be really lovely for any dark circles or puffiness when you wake up. Now working up around the side of the eye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then again draining down the neck. Lifting up into the hairline, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and draining down. My hands to the center of the chest. And gently travel up through center and over to the other side. And just seeing if there's enough oil. And I might need a tiny bit more. Taking my oil and spreading that across the face and down the neck. Spiraling up and then down the nose and scooping round. Beautiful. I'm going to bring myself onto the opposite diagonal now, and I'm lifting up towards myself. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now working out along the jaw. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now either side of the lip. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And scooping underneath the zygomatic arch, followed by a flat hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then bringing in my Gua Sha, and behind the ear, working down the neck. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And again, from the chin out towards the ear, below the jaw, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then with our double curve along the jaw. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And taking that big curve and scooping up the whole face. We're going 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then gently draining down the neck. I'm going to take the point of my Gua Sha and I'm going to pull up underneath the cheekbone and hold for 1, 2, 3, 4, Taking that same curve and working out underneath the eye. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And working out from the corner of the eye, draining up into the hairline. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then working out across the forehead. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And taking my tool behind the ear, gently draining down the neck. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Beautiful. Gonna come back to center, gently lifting the head and lowering, working out from the center of the chest and just circling on the shoulders. I'm going to lift up the neck all the way to the forehead and going back into my 1,000 hands. I'm going to circle across the temples. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then coming up to the third eye and alternating with my circles. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then spreading my pressure out across the brows. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then I'm just going to use some gentle sweeping motions to finish. Lifting all the way up towards me. And brushing out from the center of the chest to the shoulders. And then scooping around the back of the neck and just holding the head. I can pulse my fingertips up towards myself. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then again with my pressure points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to remove with my last set of mitts. And we're just going to take off all of that excess oil and prepare the skin for finishing products. Sometimes when the mitts are a little bit toasty, I like to spin them round. Perfect, so just introducing that warmth and then landing on the chest. lifting up towards myself. Making sure I don't miss anywhere. Beautiful. To finish, I'm going to apply our moisturizer. Again, lifting upwards from the neck all the way to the forehead, either side of the nose, gliding over the forehead and scooping down and over the cheeks. Any excess I'm going to take to the neck and the chest. Beautiful. And then if you could take a lovely big deep breath in for me. And then release when you're ready. And then one more. And then release. Beautiful.